Hey everyone, we've just gone live. It is great to have you all here today. We have another conversation. This has been one busy week. My name is Colleen and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Portugal The Place. And I'm so excited to have Sarah with us from Spartan FX today. We are going to talk about everything that you want to know about currency exchange, all the things you didn't know you wanted to know, and also just living in Portugal. If you have questions, Sarah is recently relocated to the Lisbon area. And of course, we're on the Silver Coast in Alcobaça. So very excited to jump in and answer your questions. We're going to go ahead and get started here, but really want to say hello to everyone. I see we have folks from Anchorage to Vermont, Arizona, coming from Colorado, Washington State, Los Angeles. It just looks like we've got folks from all over the United States. So we're really excited to have you all here. And we will be focusing on the American dollar and the conversion and all the fun that's going on right now. So before we jump into the questions, if you haven't had a chance to meet or hear Sarah in the different webinars and speaking engagements she's done, she is an expert when it comes to currency exchange, moving abroad, managing the process. And as a recent relocator to Portugal, she also totally gets what it's like to land in another country and start fresh. So Sarah, could you tell us a little bit about how long you've been in Portugal now and where you are in the process?
Absolutely. So I've been here 12 months now. It's gone very quickly. I have my residence card. I went through the process. I'm on a D8 visa. I had the VFS, and then I had my AIMA appointment, and I've got my residence card. So I've been here. Well, my AIMA appointment was in September. So in September will be my official year, but I take it from the day I landed. That's in my head is the day I got here.
That's fantastic. And now for those of you, unfortunately, now that you're from the UK and you're no longer part of the EU, you do have to go through the same visa process as those of us from North America. So you really do understand what our guests are going to be going through.
Absolutely. It is stressful, and that's why it is so important to have experts that help you to even just having a lawyer there. When I went to my AIMA appointment, it just reassures you, because even though I tell people there's no real language barriers, day to day, it's fine. Even going to the doctors, things like that, it makes it easier living here. But in that aspect, all the documents are in Portuguese. There's so many different things that you need, and it just having somebody looking over everything, dealing with everything, that really helped my stress levels.
Absolutely. And even when you begin to learn a little bit of Portuguese, I'm starting to navigate having the language as part of my, thought process, which was really strange to have this other language in my mind. But now I just know enough to be dangerous. I got a call today. I thought it was a delivery for a client or something. I had someone that was speaking to me in Portuguese, and I heard words that felt like delivered and connect. And I needed help. I couldn't totally understand what they were saying. So I passed the phone off to one of our team members, and it turned out they were trying to sell me on delivering myself to a religious experience. So I have just enough language to know that they were trying to deliver something to me, but it wasn't a package. So it's interesting how you start to navigate the language. You think you kind of know something, and then all of a sudden you're at ground zero again going, well, didn't anticipate that one. So it's fun. How are you doing? You're in Lisbon. You're in the outer area between Lisbon and Cascais, right? You're out.
Yeah, San João de Estoril. There's a train line that goes from Lisbon to Cascais, and I'm basically not quite halfway, but between the two. For me, it's quite nice because I've got Lisbon, I've got Cascais, I've got the beach. I live in quite a Portuguese residential area. Not that my Portuguese is any better at the moment because of that, but that will help me. Which is quite nice. But also, like many of you, I needed an address for the visa. So, I got introduced. I was quite fortunate to this person that owns this apartment, and I took it straight away. And I thought in my head, worst case scenario, I come here, I get my AIMA appointment, I get my and then I can move. So sometimes people, are looking for the perfect apartment. Obviously, that doesn't quite always exist. But sometimes you need to maybe sacrifice, even if it's just for the first address, because it's just so important to get one for the AIMA. And really, even though you need that for you need a 12-month contract for the visa, once you you've got your resident card, you can leave, that you can cancel the agreement.
You can always move, and in a lot of times you've already fulfilled a large portion of your residence contract just in the process of getting your first appointment and then waiting for approval. So it goes by very fast. The 12 months can zoom by. So let's dig into currency. Before, for everyone that's joining us, please feel free to put your questions in the comments. Fiona's working behind the scenes and she'll be posting up the different questions as they come through. But we're going to get started just with some level setting topics. So Sarah, currency rates right now, what are we looking at? Let's talk specifically about the US dollar, as I believe a majority of our guests are from the United States. Where are we at?
So at the moment, depending on which way you look, usually we do look at euro US dollar. So it would be 117.62. But if you're looking at it the inverse way, US dollar euros, some people are looking at it, it'd be 0.8502 as it stands at the moment. And yes, we have seen quite a big movement since the beginning of the year. It's about sort of 14%. So to put that into monetary terms, on your 500,000 euros for golden visa or property, then you're talking a difference of about 77,000 US dollars. So it does make a difference. I mean, what I would say is that I've been doing this for nearly 20 years now, actually, next year. And I've been helping many people move to different countries. And I've seen the rates move dramatically in those time periods. And I think what tends to happen is that, yes, we have seen it better, but we're in a new reality now. So unfortunately, we've got to sort of adjust to where the rates are right this second, because there's a lot of volatility. As we said before, we are in probably a bit of a global crisis. And to gain back 14% would take quite a lot.
Yeah.
So your time frames, it depends what you're looking to do. And also we're looking at sort of what data, what information, what's sort of coming out at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we have, Paul is asking, once we obtain temporary residency with the D7, can we keep the majority of our retirement funds in our US-based and US managed funds, transferring only what we need to Portugal? And will Spartan FX work with these US-based financial planners for smooth currency conversion? Do we need to keep a US address during this process until permanent residency is established? So I'm going to jump into two parts of that question, and I'm going to toss the part over to you, Sarah. So when it comes to retirement funds and your US managed funds, there are restrictions on the type of funds that you can maintain when you have a residency outside of the United States. Until you have that residency, you can keep everything status quo. You can continue to have it the way it is. But once you become a tax resident of Portugal, then you need to make sure that you've checked and had a cross-borders expert look at your investments, because there are certain investments that require you to be a US resident. Roth IRAs are definitely one of them that you need to consider. We can't give specific investment advice here. You really need to work with a licensed cross-border specialist, and that may not be your tax consult or your investment consultant in the US. They may not have experience in Portugal. So really important to reach out for a cross-border specialist. But I'll toss it to you, Sarah, about when they do want to make currency exchange from their financial planners.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, we can. And I think that's the thing that I sort of discovered living here and through this process and working with more and more Americans, is that, we're not necessarily a standalone service. We can and will work in conjunction with your financial advisor in the US or here, with your tax specialist here and in the US, because it all fits together. Talking about what are the tax implications of moving your money at the right time? What does that look like? As I said, your financial advisor in the US, or do you have one here and then they've got different funds that are here? So we all kind of work together to see where your money should be and what that looks like. Obviously, from a conversion perspective, that's where we obviously come into it. If you want to keep it in the US and just do as and when you need, that completely fine. Again, it depends on everybody's situation, because eventually people will look to buy a property perhaps after the 12 months. But again, if we see, I mean, one of the things obviously is that the US dollar is normally a safe haven currency, and there people are losing a little bit of confidence in the US dollar. Trump wants to put pressure on the Fed to cut interest rates because that will help stimulate the economy, but also with his one beautiful bill, it's costing about 4 trillion. So if interest rates go up, the debt repayment on that is going to be more expensive. Obviously, debts for Americans will become more expensive. So he wants interest rates to come down, and he doesn't want a strong US dollar because it will help with exports.
Right.
Then there's obviously the issue of he wants to get rid of Powell. And if he does, and he puts someone in, that obviously basically he will then control the Fed, which is supposed to be an independent body, which is a greater concern, that he will then have control of that. And what will that look like? How will that impact the stock markets? How,
absolutely.
It's a longer term that I understand he wants to make America great again, but I think it's going to take a while. I don't know what that looks like, but in the meantime, I think there's going to be a lot of struggle with the US economy.
Exactly. That's what we're referring to when we're saying everything's a little, it is a bit of a global crisis right now because we are in such an unknown. Every day, every week, there's some kind of announcement that affects this. So for Paul, for your question, yes, absolutely. Spartan is able to assist you with all of that transfer. But definitely you're going to want a really, really quick, responsive cross-border specialist to help you with your investments when it comes to that time. So let's see, we are having a fair amount of questions that are somewhat similar. So I'm going to kind of summarize the questions. A lot of folks are asking us right now about how and when to exchange that money for that moment when they need to move the money to Portugal, when it needs to be in euros in their Portuguese bank account, or when they're purchasing a home. We're getting a lot of questions about a smooth currency conversion and how do we know when to get the best rate? That is a loaded question. Sarah, how do you see, how do people deal with this? What if they transfer today and 3 weeks from now something else comes up and it's a better time? How do we deal with all of this unknown?
I think there's a couple of things. There is an element of sometimes what we could look is sort of slight spikes that we're seeing at the moment. Maybe not the great moves that we would want, but maybe there's small spikes of a respite where, for example, Trump will say he's going to come in and reduce the tariffs he's initially said, or, another country isn't going to retaliate and you just accept them, and vice versa. So that we see, I don't know, maybe 0.5%, maybe 1% move slightly in your favor, then maybe buy a quarter or half of what you need, and then that helps spread your risk. I think it's peace of mind. It's budgeting, I think, is the key thing. I mean, everybody's different. I mean, obviously myself, I'd like the rates to be better for my they've gone down for my salary that I transfer every month. So I think it's a little bit of peace of mind sometimes, especially with sort of property. What we can do is, if you haven't got a Portuguese bank account, we can buy euros in advance and hold them on account for you free of charge. All the money's protected, so it's very secure. So even if we were holding €1 million, all that money's protected. So if anything should happen to us as a company, you'd get all that money back. The other thing that we've been talking a lot with clients at the moment is what we call a forward contract. But what it means is we can secure a rate today for a future payment. So if you've got completion for a property, say in 12 weeks, 3 months time, you can secure the rate today for that future payment. We just need 10% deposit. It's not a cost or a charge. It locks the rate in, and then you pay the remaining 90% when you need the money, but you're securing the rate, and then you're controlling the cost of your property.
Absolutely. I think that's like to Wendy's question here. Wendy's asking about they're selling their home in the US, but planning on renting for a year or two before buying. How do we move a large amount for a purchase with the uncertainty? Is it better to move it all to euros sooner, move them later, or move each month? And I think, Wendy, to what Sarah was just saying, they have these forward contracts. And a lot of our purchasers, I work directly with the folks that are purchasing homes, and this has been one of the things that has created peace of mind. You can do a contract that locks in the rate today, and then you can budget. You know exactly what that amount of money will be for you when it comes to euros. You start with 10% of the amount you contract. Let's say it's 500,000 euros. You put 10% in, and then over 12 months, you deposit the rest, and you're locked in at that rate. Now, the bummer is if it does get better, you're locked in at the rate that you chose. but it protects you from the dips and from the moments when things are, not going in your favor. So for folks looking to budget when they want to come here, how much am I going to have to buy a house? I just sold my house. I got 500,000. How much am I going to have in a year? This is a way to mitigate your risk. So this is something that Spartan FX has done really well for our clients, helped people have that confidence. And then you can work within that budget when you're looking to purchase or just move large amounts of money to Portugal.
The other thing as well is that 90% then can still be in your higher interest earning account. So I met with a client last week who they are thinking about doing a forward contract for December, because that's when they're going to complete, and it's just going to give them peace of mind because they've already seen, unfortunately they should have done it sooner, but in hindsight, so now they're just worried that they don't want it to get worse and it can control their budget. But in the meantime, 90%, they've got it in a higher interest earning account, so it can still be earning more interest. Whereas obviously if you transfer perhaps to euros to your account in Portugal, it might not be earning as much. So there's ways around it of sort of looking, again, it's not a sort of a bit more holistic, is that, yes, we can help buy euros, we can control the cost of that, but where would you put it? What does that look like? There's some other options around that might be helpful.
And I see we have a couple of questions here that we'll summarize here about Spartan, how you make money. What's your fee structure? How does it work for our clients that are considering using your service?
Absolutely. So there's not a fee as such, or a management fee, or as I said, if we hold euros in account, we're doing that free of charge. Or if you wanted to lock the rate, there's no cost for that. The only way we make our money is through what we buy and what we sell. How I explain to people is very simple, similar to I don't know, a chair wholesale price. We buy it, and then you buy it at a different price in the shop. It's essentially that.
And that's how everyone does it, correct? Banks, everyone giving you exchange. Those horrible exchange rates you get at the airport are people that are giving you a convenience fee because you're standing there and they put a lot higher rate. And then folks like you are able to get an opportunity for people to have a competitive rate. So the commission is the way a lot of things to do with currency. Yes. That's how people are making their money. The
thing with your bank is that, well, we give a better price. I mean, I did a comparison with that same client, that we did a comparison on her 500,000 against Bank of America, and we would save them just against the rate of their bank, $26,000, and that's just the rate against the bank, not looking at the management of the And one thing that we see a lot is people think that when they have an account, I did this before I knew about Spartan FX, I had to transfer money to Portugal and I had Chase Sapphire and I was like, oh, wow. They said there's no fees to do an international transfer. And I was so naive on the understanding of the commission and shopping it around and checking. So I was like, great, no fee. That's fantastic. So it saved me $50 on the one side, but their commission rate, I still want some of that money back because now I know what I did. So it's really important if you've got these accounts that are, giving you lots of different perks, they say like no fees on this or that. Look at the fine print, look at the commission structures. Banks don't give anything away for free. So it's in there somewhere. Let's see, we've got a lot of questions here, so we're going to move a little quicker through these. Jennifer is asking if passive income is from a military disability and residency has been established, would the direct deposit then go into the Portuguese bank as euros? If you're doing it directly from the United States in the Treasury, is depositing into your Portuguese bank account, there would be a conversion and it convert directly to euros. So that is one of the challenges when you do it directly. If you're having it set up that way, that'll tell you what that rate will be, but it'll come in as euros and you'll be at the bank's conversion rate. But Sarah, you guys can also set up for people on regular payments, correct? Yes, absolutely. I mean, obviously on smaller amounts, the savings are less, but you will still save money against the bank. But also sometimes some beneficiary banks in Portugal and other countries, they charge a receiving fee. I think one client came to us and they've been charged about 13 euros for the money, 13 euros 50 for the money to be received. We take on the receiving charges. So the way we send the money means that you don't get that charge. So again, that's another saving, a small amount, but on the smaller transactions, this is where it makes the difference.
It's a great line in Portugal. At 13 euros, you're having a fantastic plastic bottle of wine. So every little bit counts. For sure.
I mean, obviously, if you can, it's not necessarily cheaper to bunch transfers together. And as far as our service is, we'll give you very good rates on all of your transactions. It's not a tiered structure. If you do large, you get better. We do on everything for our clients, because we think that's a fair policy. But obviously, if you're charged by your bank a fee to transfer the money, an international wire transfer, then obviously that's where it's beneficial maybe to think about lumping them together to avoid that.
Yeah, and you have to be careful with regional banks in the US and with credit unions, because there are certain investment accounts. So some smaller banks don't do international wires at all. Some, like credit unions, it can be very difficult. And then other things to factor is some of your investment accounts will use a third party bank to do a transfer. And that's also something that can throw you off a little. Perhaps your money's invested with Edward Jones. They don't actually do the transfer. They're contracted through Wells Fargo, for example. So there can be layers of information happening when you're transferring. So it's really important to ask those questions when you're starting to move, especially large bits of money, from whatever financial institution you're holding it at in the States. There's a lot of different layers, and all the regional banks in the US, all the different states' policies, all the different things really make it hard for us to say one thing is this and one thing is that, because each state has kind of different rules and regulations about it. So let's see, we have another question here. Could you compare your services to something like Wise? Sarah?
Absolutely. I was just talking to someone who asked me this question the other day. I think the main difference is, I know that clients have used Wise small amounts, it's gone very quickly and it's very easy. And yes, they have a card, which we don't have. But I would say more for certainly larger sums of money, just that reassurance of having someone to speak to around the security. As I said, all the money's protected and the money's with us. I think also as well is that, it's not just about giving a better exchange rate on the day, which we can against Wise. As I said, it's around helping you manage the money and the exchange rates. They don't give that guidance, and it'd be more difficult for you to, if you wanted to do this forward contract, it's something you'd have to go online and do yourself, which I think is a little bit more, I don't think they offer for personal clients, I think only businesses. So we're giving you more tools and options that might help manage the money essentially. And then there's around sort of the support side of things, as Colleen was saying, our team are very experienced and can understand a lot of the different banks and the processes they have. Again, we know they don't make an international transfer. Or one client came to us and was saying that their bank were charging $65 to make a transfer. That's far too expensive. You need to be looking at a bank that does cheaper, because you save money straight away. What do you need? Is there a form you need to fill in? Do you need an international card reader? We've spoken to bank tellers on behalf of clients when they're in the branch, because they've never used an IBAN before. We ring the beneficiary and just make sure that that's correct, because unfortunately we see human errors, we see fraud. If it's a valid IBAN number and you were using Wise and you put it in yourself, the money would go. So again, it's just to make sure that we're protecting you, that we're sending it to the correct destination. We recommend doing small tests. A lot of clients that have come to us and have had problems with Wise is usually a little bit more around compliance. They've opened the account, exchanged the money, and then the money's been held. But it's very difficult. The 5 working days policy will get back to you, or it's been a few weeks and they haven't heard anything, and then the next minute their account's being closed and the money's sent back. And it's a very stressful time, especially property when you've got a deadline.
Absolutely. I think we have a collection of questions here, and if you transfer with Spartan, and we're getting a lot of these questions, there's 2 reasons that we've really felt confident in recommending Spartan for our clients. It isn't always about when everything goes great. Yes, if you transfer money with Wise and everything goes okay, you're going to have a fairly good rate. You can do it online. You just kind of do this and hopefully everything goes okay. But now in our experience, our depth of experience of people that have been transferring money, we have had more situations than I like to have to be involved in where they've used Wise and then the money is just suspended in nowhere and they're not getting any kind of customer service. There's no one to contact. You're just stuck waiting. And in a couple of cases, the money ended up, like Sarah was saying, going back, and then they lost financial transactions like real estate down payment and things like that. So having Spartan as a human being, as people that know your name, know who you are, that you can go to, has been a really confident building partner for us when people are moving large bits of money. I know all of the players, I know the people. So if something goes wrong, I can call and be like, hey, what's happening? This bank says that they sent it, but it's not showing up. And they immediately can respond. So I think it's the human touch. It's the human contact that is the confidence builder. And then, yes, you can transfer the amount that you need to transfer to your bank account with Spartan. Spartan can transfer the 20,000, the 15,000. You can create an account with Spartan and then use it for a variety of transfers. So absolutely funding your Portuguese bank account for your visa, that's a great way sorry, David just popped up a question here and I was like, whoa. So Wise failed in a transfer from Chase to your Portugal account more than once and you're done with them. I hear this quite a bit. It's technology is only as good as when it works. It's really nice to have people involved, and that's what Spartan FX has done for us. So, Mark,
even for myself, sorry, just a couple of things. One is, I use Steve in our office to do mine when I was moving, because there's so much stress going on. And to think if I'd put the IBAN number, even myself when I'm doing it now, even just in Portugal, sending things internally, which I don't need Spartan for, I'm still double checking numbers because the IBAN's a long number, things like that. It's just very restful. And it's just nice having someone to ring someone up and just they take care of it for you. Essentially like having a private banker. It's lovely.
Margaret's asking a question about, once you establish your Portuguese bank account, our US bank cannot wire transfer over. Do we need an organization like Spartan FX to move the dollars for us? I'm with Bank of America. So Bank of America should be able to wire the money over. But the reason that we encourage you to explore partners such as Spartan FX is because they're going to be making money off of that international wire transfer. Not only will they have some fees involved, most likely, they will also be charging a commission on that exchange. So if you want to move dollars to euros, the bank is going to make money there. And where a company like Spartan FX will come in, they're very competitive. And then you have a partner that will help you with the transfer, be there to communicate and guide you through the process. So it's not that US banks can't do international transfers, but we do see a lot of issues with the costs that they charge, the customer service, and if something goes haywire, not having anyone that has experience to help you navigate it.
Also, Bank of America, we know, is probably one of the more expensive banks as well.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, there's a couple of banks that have some pretty high fees. All right. So Julie is asking, I've seen several discussions online that Wise has recently started holding monies and delaying transfers due to the new US excise tax. Will Spartan FX do this as well?
No. No. The things that we do, you will transfer US dollars to us, and then we will convert. So you're transferring the US dollars, then we'll convert to euros. We do a lot of the compliance up front. That's what I was saying, where the money's not held up. So any compliance we need to do, we do that at the account opening stage or just before the transfer. We make sure we have everything in place so that then the transfer can go smoothly, rather than the other way around. Wise tend to do everything and then they don't release your money until they get the documents. So we make sure we have everything in place before that, so it doesn't hold the money up.
Absolutely. So Deborah's asking, can you even get a Wise account in the US? They've been saying it is not available. Spartan FX sounds much better. Thank you. You can have a Wise account in the United. I'm not sure who's saying it's not available, but I had a Wise account when I was in the US. We have a fair amount of clients that have it. It's an app, and or on your desktop. There may be something about uploading it, but it is possible to get that. But I still think that working with a company like Spartan FX, having human beings involved, it's a lot of peace of mind. Absolutely.
I think I've seen odd things in the press around now and then where they stop onboarding clients in certain places, or whether it be corporate or something. And I think probably it comes down to the regulator and the compliance, that you need to be doing a certain level, and some companies are perhaps a little bit not doing it as well as they should, and then they get investigated for that.
So Deborah is saying that WISE is only old accounts that still work. That's really great information. I'm certainly happy to check in on that. We haven't had that come up with our clients, but that's really interesting and good to know. I think Ernest and Kurt are asking about their original funding of our account with Novo Banco was a $50 fee from our bank for a small amount. Spartan FX is definitely the company we want to explore. Yeah, it definitely adds up, especially if you're transferring, different amounts over. It's really, the one thing people need to understand is when you work with Spartan, you move dollars to dollars and then they do the conversion exchange. So that's a different transaction than when you are moving dollars to euros by doing a transfer directly to your bank. So that's a little bit of a subtle difference, but it makes a huge difference in what you're going to be charged and how that works. I think Lillian's asking if there are high yield saving accounts available in Portugal. Not at the same level that the United States offers them. There's a lot more regulation. There are some options, but the interest rates are not nearly as high as what you can see, what you can gain in the US. So that is something to consider when you're moving your money and then not using it right away when you want to have it invested. There are really good, solid investment accounts and partners that you can get to look at short-term and long-term investments in Europe. So that's possible, but the savings accounts at the banks are a little less robust than the US. All right, and there's a couple of things that I just wanted to cover. Sarah, you're going to be familiar with this because I'm sure you're hearing about it. Everyone that's in the process of looking to get a bank account in Portugal right now, the banks in Portugal have really, really limited the amount of clients that they will work with coming from the US that do not have residency here yet. We have a partnership, Portugal The Place has a partnership with Novo Banco, and we are actually able to open these accounts remotely. But I do want to share with everyone, planning in advance. If you're wanting to work with us, we are now finding that we need more than a month in many cases to get the documents back. Novo Banco is sending almost every client to compliance. There is a lot more paperwork that they're reviewing, and it's not 2 weeks like it was 6 months ago. Now it's more 4 to 6 weeks. So if you're thinking about getting started for your visa, if you're started on your NIF and you're thinking you need that bank account as your next step, and especially if you're wanting to work with us, we need to get as much ramp up time on that as possible. So if you've got that in your planning, we need as much notice as we can to get you set up, and be prepared for a time to wait because it's taking longer to get those answers back. All right, and Jill is asking, we have a funded account with Novo Banco since we started the golden visa process. They've been challenging to work with, very slow, if any responses to our questions and needs. Do you recommend another bank? No, actually, Novo Banco is one of the faster banks. I know, it feels so slow and the response time is challenging. And like I was just saying, right now, Novo Banco is being inundated with applications and people trying to get bank accounts, as they're the only option in many cases for remote bank accounts. So they're just swamped. But in Portugal, you will find, Sarah, I don't know who you're banking with, but I have bank accounts between Millennium, BPI, and Novo Banco. And Novo Banco for me is one of the fastest to work with and easiest to work with.
I think it's Portugal is a great place to live. The quality of life, there is a slower mentality, but it's lovely. They take time for lunch, the work-life balance, they're very family. It's lovely. You're going to love living here. There are the downsides, and that is the slower process when it comes to things like anything with a document. It's basically, the systems they've got in place haven't changed since they were 20 odd years ago. They haven't been able to, it's not a criticism. The number of people that are coming now, the influx, they've just not been able to move quick enough, unfortunately, the volume. So things do take, I've just got a car. It's taken quite a number of months just with the paperwork. It was very frustrating, but it is what it is. So again, as long as you prepare yourself for that, I think is more the thing. It's just going to take a little bit longer, but it is well worth it when you get here.
And the other thing to note, there's something called the Portuguese kind of yes, and there's also a different cultural piece than American customer service. This piece really throws people off. In the US, we respond with filler sentences. We kind of do things like, hey, got your email, I'll let you know, or I'll get back to you on that, or some kind of filler sentence that acknowledges that you sent a question, they don't know the answer yet, but they're getting it. In Portuguese culture, very rarely will a standard Portuguese business person respond that way. Often you'll send an email and then almost forget you sent it because it'll be days before you get a response. And then out of the blue, you'll get an email with all the answers that you forgot you wanted from a week before, because they will work on it. They will find the information and then they'll respond. But there isn't a lot of times like that middle conversation. So it is an odd adjustment for those of us. I don't know if that's more similar in England, but for Americans, we're used to having a lot of touch points. Hi, how are you? That's great. I'll let you know. Thank you. You know, all those little words in between. Whereas in Portugal, they just don't say anything until they give you what you've asked for. And I've had things come back 2 or 3 weeks later and I've totally forgot that I even asked. So it is a bit of an adjustment when you're used to having a different process.
But I think it's, as I said, it is with everything, that just do not leave things to the last minute, because it will make your life, it will make it more stressful. And because you can't get things to move along as quickly as you probably could in America at that point, given the time difference, the time frames that you've got, is just give yourself more time. I mean, certainly a lot of clients use us because the accounts are in your name. It's very similar to a bank account, so we can pay any third party. I know you will need a Portuguese bank, obviously, for the visa. You will need to show that you've got money in account for the D7, or obviously the golden visa. The money will need to be in your PT, your Portuguese bank account. But otherwise, we can facilitate those payments. We can pay to third parties, even if you've not got a bank account. So even if you wanted to purchase a property now, we can still send to the lawyer or the seller, and you wouldn't need that, because that's what people are saying that they find quite useful. If they're not being able to get it open quick enough, they're still able to make payments and use it like that.
And that's what Deborah, that's exactly what we talked. They'll work with you, work with your bank. And I also see Roger asking a question, do you need to have a lease? Do you need to have a lease on a place before being able to open a bank account through you? No, you do not. That's one of the partnership agreements we've made with Novo Banco, is we can start the process for your bank account as soon as you have a NIF. You definitely have to have your tax ID, but you will not need to have a lease to open the bank account. And yes, Julie, they were purchased actually, but there hasn't been any change in services. So Novo Banco was already owned before by an American holding company, and then it's been purchased to a company, I believe it's a Spanish holding company now. So part of the financial world they're selling around. And then Lillian's asking, does Spartan FX have a preferred US bank to work with?
I would say the best bank that we've seen is Schwab. You need to fill in an international transfer form, which we help clients fill in, but they're certainly the cheaper on transfer fee, and transferring the money to us is quite straightforward. I would say probably one of the better banks.
So Paul's asking if it's recommended that you open a Spartan account before we open the Novo Banco account. And it is a very smooth process when you have that, because you can actually transfer the money to Spartan and have it there and ready to go while Novo Banco is going through the compliance paperwork and going through everything to get it open. So the second that it's ready to be funded and it has all the account numbers that Spartan will need, they can then do that transfer for you, and it's very smooth and very easy. So if it's possible and you intend to move, some money into that Portuguese account, it really can be beneficial. It can just make things a little bit easier for you. It's not required, of course. We can do it in any order, but it does help folks a lot of times as they're trying to get through that step.
I mean, it's completely free to open an account with us, and there's still no obligation to use us when you have got an account. So I would say do it, have the conversations with us now, because at least then you put yourself in a position that if there was a rate movement, or if you, either way, you're in a position to jump on that, because there's nothing worse than you're waiting for the account to open, something happens in the market and you're not able to then buy your euros. But also, as you said, just even having the conversations with our team, put it in as part of your research around, let's talk about who you bank with, what are their policies, what we have experience, as I said, with various different banks. We can really understand what's needed, what you need to put in place. Do you need to sign any forms? Do you need an international card reader? What do you need to prepare at that side before you actually move to Portugal? And as I said, that's not necessarily at that point using our services specifically. It's just putting all the processes in place so that it makes it smoother when you do want to move your money, especially when you're actually physically in Portugal.
Absolutely. And Carrie's asking a question. We've opened a bank account in Portugal and sold our home in California. We're just waiting for our D7 visa. Suggestions on sending the proceeds from the home sale to Portugal so we can live off of it until we find where we want to live. So this is all, again, similar to what we've been talking about. You can open a Spartan account, move that money over in dollars, and then have it sent over to your Portuguese account to live off of. So that is all very, very readily available and possible to do. It also gives you the opportunity, like we were talking about earlier, to lock in that rate with a 10% transfer. And then if you want to keep some of that money working in an investment account in the US while you're waiting, and then you can have that distributed later when you move, that's also a possibility. I would highly recommend, Carrie, that you reach out to Spartan FX and that you talk to them about that process, because they can certainly help manage that process for you. All right, and we have, looks like at this point, we have some folks that are asking similar questions or talking a little bit about moving monies on Fidelity or USAA, Schwab, a lot of those investment accounts. And Sarah, this is something you work with all the time, correct? With the financial planners and money movement. And like I was saying earlier, there can be middlemen involved. There can be other companies involved for transferring money. So how do you help people navigate that and research that? What do you suggest they do?
I mean, as I said, as far as, again, that's what's really the conversation that we have with you. Yes, it's talking about the rates, but it is talking about your whole situation, what sort of time frames, if you do know of any payments or anything that you're looking to do, but also a lot of it is around where your money is in America, whether, as I said, whether we understand that those specific accounts sometimes, for example, as you said before, some brokerage accounts don't do international payments. So you'll need to move the money from the brokerage account to a checking account. And then, as I said, understanding which banks perhaps work better. And sometimes it's a case of you bank with one bank and actually another bank we know is slightly better. You may be able to switch banks.
Yeah, exactly. And Roger was commenting here about transfers could be less expensive through Schwab. When we're talking about Schwab as being one, so all the different investment accounts, I've seen that Schwab has actually, at least in our experience, I've seen people have a little bit more success and not having the same expense with a middle company. How do you feel about that? Is that your experience as well, Sarah?
I mean, yes. I mean, in the scale of banks, Schwab, if you did it through Schwab and not through us, they are one of the cheaper banks in comparison to, say, as we said, Wells Fargo and Bank of America.
Yes, Bank of America and Wells Fargo.
Yes, exactly. But we are still cheaper than Schwab. So you still save money through us. But as a bank, when it comes to a transfer fee or being able to move the money a bit more smoothly, certainly to us, and then we transfer onto your account, they are one of the better banks to work with.
We've seen that for sure. We have a couple minutes to get a couple more questions in, so feel free to send them over. Paul is asking if it's possible to set up an appointment to talk to Spartan representative before, after, or while in the process of opening an account. Presently, I use Wise and I have a Novo Banco account. Absolutely. How do they reach you, Sarah? How would they schedule an appointment?
Absolutely. I mean, what we obviously do call. I mean, when you actually do an exchange, we need that to be on recorded telephone lines, because obviously you're entering into the contract with us and it's to protect you and to protect us. But we can do a Zoom call, a WhatsApp video, or a normal call. It's quite nice to do that because, again, you can get to know your personal dealer, see them almost face to face, and start building that relationship, because this is something that you will need really for a long time, because you're moving to Portugal and obviously you're coming from the US. So we want to build that relationship and get to know you and support you on this journey. So absolutely, you can send me an email. We can set up the calls.
And Paul, we will do an introduction for you as well. So if you're a Portugal The Place client, you just let us know and we'll set up an introduction for you and make sure that you're connected with the folks that you need to be. So if that's something you're interested in, we are happy to do that, and we'll do that for all of our clients. And then Carrie's asking if we'll be explaining, I'm going to leave this to Spartan. Will you be explaining tax implications for transferring funds?
No, we don't get involved in the tax side of things. We purely specialize in the foreign exchange. So as I said in the beginning, we don't work in silo. We work with your financial advisor, with your tax specialist, and then there's us. And we can, obviously with your permission for GDPR, but we can all talk together. So we can be involved, if need be, in conversations with that, if you need us to be. What we do, we don't have to report anything to anyone, but what we do is that clients come to us and they need to fill out the FBAR, and we help. They give us a list of questions, we fill them in, we give all the information, and we give that back to you. So we give you as much information as you need to fill in whatever forms that you need. Again, similarly, when we work with, buyer's agent, with Colleen, we can give extra tracking. We know exactly when the money is in the beneficiary accounts, especially if you're sending it to a seller, and we can provide all the proof of payment. So it's very important sometimes to have the audit trail of the money. So again, we can provide all the documents that you need for accountants, for tax, whatever, but we don't specialize in those services.
Okay. And so, yes, you work with public accountants as well. I'm assuming anyone that they have authorization to communicate with you, you'll be able to work with.
Yes.
And then we have just a couple more questions here. So Judy is asking, is it possible to transfer to Spartan and they hold money until exchange rate is better? Or is that a nonsense question? That is not a nonsense question at all, Judy. That is exactly what you would want to do. That's what we love to have people do, is be able to have the option to get it transferred over and then work with folks like Sarah and Neil and the team over at Spartan to talk about when it's better and what they recommend would work for you for that. So
yes, we can. Yeah. And as I said, the money is fully protected. So you can, and the money, the account's in your name, similar to bank. So yes, you can hold, we can hold US dollars until you're ready. And we often do that specifically, again, maybe if you've sold your property in the US and the money's coming from a lawyer, it can come direct to us. It doesn't have to go straight into a US account. So that's sometimes a little bit easier. I had a client who's been here for, I think, 20 years. They've sold a property in the US, no longer have a UK bank account. And so the money was coming from the lawyer. And it came straight to us in sterling this time, and we can transfer on. The only thing that is different, it isn't, you won't earn interest on the account. We're holding the money purely out of convenience because you've not got a bank account, or, as I said, from a convenience perspective, for the need that you have to take advantage of the rate, that sort of thing, it won't be earning interest. As I said, sometimes the forward contract, securing the rate, that can be beneficial if you did want to keep money in a higher interest earning account.
And Margaret is asking about the D7 income and the monthly income that you need. And that's been one of the great partnerships with Spartan, is they've been working with folks that are doing large lump sum transfers over, and they've been working with folks that do a monthly distribution. So you can certainly speak with Spartan, look at setting up an account and work within what is best for you. So Margaret, that would be something that we'd be happy to make an introduction for you, and then you could explore that for sure. Oh, thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. Thank you again. I love those comments. We really appreciate it. Irene is asking if we can get a video for this. Absolutely. This is going to be distributed out to everybody that has signed up today. So you'll get the recording of this after we're all set. And then Sarah, tell us a little bit about what everybody's going to receive as well. What are we going to be sending out to them for those that signed up?
Yes, so we've got a moving money guide as well, so you can access that. It covers a lot of what we've talked about today, so you can have a read through that. But as I said, it's free to have a conversation with us. Just have a chat. The team are very friendly. The feedback we have from clients is that, they feel like they're part of the Spartan FX family. I think if they came over to Portugal, there's definitely beers waiting for them. So, it's lovely. Yeah. As I said, I'm here in Portugal myself. So if there's any questions you want to ask about where I'm living or anything like that, or want to meet for a coffee, then I'm happy to do that as well.
Yes. And yes, they work with people moving to countries all over the world. So absolutely, it's great. Spartan is it's interesting because I've gone to dinner with Sarah and Neil and the team, and I've learned so much about currency in general, currency exchange for around the world. I'm so educated because these people, this is their world. And sometimes I've learned more than I ever knew I wanted to know, but it's fantastic. They truly are part of the Portugal The Place family. We work exclusively with Spartan FX because the relationship to be able to help if something is going on, we can pick up the phone and call if something's happening. Sometimes on time zones, we can get working on it before folks even get up. So we love working with folks that we've had a lot of experience with, and Spartan FX has always been there for us. I do want to share for anyone that isn't working with Portugal The Place right now, if you'd like to schedule a call, if you'd like to talk with us about the process, where you're at, learn more, our consultations are free. Again, we're so happy to speak with you. You can go to portugaltheplace.com and schedule a consultation call. And then when you are working with us, part of our service is to make sure you're connected with vetted professionals that we can depend on. And Spartan FX is absolutely one of our foundation partners. So we're really thrilled to have this relationship. Sarah and I will continue to do these events so that we can share when things are coming up. And if you'd like an introduction, if you're currently with Portugal The Place, just drop a message in your WhatsApp group and we'll get you connected out to the team over at Spartan. And if you're considering Portugal The Place, we look forward to talking with you and sharing more about all these great services. So this has been a heck of a week. I've had a lot of conversations online this week. Sarah, it's been great to have you here. Thank you so much for sharing all of your insights. And now you're on my time zone in Portugal. You're here with us. So that's fantastic. And the next webinar that's coming up, just so everyone knows, is July 31st. We have a webinar that we're going to be doing with Expacity. And we're going to be talking about a subject that I saw a couple of you mention. We're going to be talking about navigating bureaucracy and working with Portuguese professionals and how to deal with it, deal with your expectations, and be prepared for how it can feel really different. So we'll be sharing all that out. Thank you to everyone. And Sarah, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.